Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I didn't schedule this live. I just kind of did a pop-up live to talk about some things about different cases. And, just if anybody happens to stop in, that's great. If not, that's okay. Catch it on the replay if you'd like. But I would like to talk about different cases. As you remember, I'm visually impaired, so I will try my best to um, focus on if anybody comes in chat and stuff like that. So please bear with me. The first case I would really like to talk about is a little girl. Well, she's not really little, but a child by the name of Kaylee Jones. I'm sure. I'm sorry, not Kylie. Kaylee Jones. I'm sure that a few people have heard of her. Nana's Angels has talked about her, Sleuth Mom as well. And there's a couple of channels out there who have, spoke about her. So I, listened to Nana and went over to Sleuth's and listened over there too. And I feel like everybody has their own opinions about these parents who are not her biological parents or her, her foster parents. And I would like to talk about something from personal experience within my family that I think possibly applies to Kaylee, along with other teenagers, not necessarily girls or teenagers that are on the spectrum. I mean, just in general. Online predators, they have this knack, I guess you could say, for how to analyze, for instance, like a profile picture from Facebook. Okay. If you look at a profile picture and let's say it's, like this teddy bear, lots of balloons, smiles, the teenager looks genuinely happy, and nothing really sticks out except for, the fact that they're a happy teenager. However, there are pictures out there of these kids who you can genuinely see in that profile picture that something is bothering them. I'm not saying necessarily it is their home life that is bothering them per se, or that it is, something going on within school or whatever. But there's just a look that they have that you can just see that, they have sadness in their eyes, or maybe they put up some kind of emo type thing that kind of sets off some vibes that something isn't okay. And I'm not saying that everybody that puts up emo stuff or a picture and they have like a sad face or anything means that there's something horrible going on. That's not what I mean. But what I am saying is that these online predators, they know how to, it's like they have this like spidey sense, and they know how to pick up on certain things just by looking at somebody's picture. And I feel like a lot of people are capable of, doing that when they see a picture. They, like judge a book by its cover kind of deal. But these sickos, this is something they've perfected in a sense over the years, because a lot of them, when they originally started doing it, the internet wasn't such a playground for them. They didn't have as much access to things like they do now. And the reason Kaylee's case really kind of resonates and bothers me so much is, I am 50-50 on what's happening between her and her foster family. The one thing that I know, like I said, from experience within my own family, is that she was an easy target. So even if you leave out anything that the foster parents said that was negative, okay? If you leave out the fact that she was, I don't know, they kind of made it seem like she was, a handful, and she has a history of running away. Even if you take all that out of the equation, she was online and she had access to social media. Apparently, she had a cell phone, and even though she was homeschooled, the foster parents said that they had put different things on her phone and whatnot to block it. The person in my life, she was an introvert at the time. She very rarely left her house. She would go hang out with friends occasionally. She went to regular high school. She was incredibly intelligent. I mean, this is a kid who was thinking about college when she was like in grammar school. Like she already knew what her plan for the future was, and she was all about academics. And her main focus was school, school, school. And she was kind of a hermit, um, but she wasn't, you know, homeschooled or anything, but she wasn't a social butterfly either. However, she had things that she was dealing with. And unfortunately, a older person, uh, I hate saying person, an older pig was able to pick up that she had something going on. And once, and I still to this day don't know how, but once he was able to figure out, however he did, I don't know if it was just by her picture or what it was, but once he was able to figure out that she would be essentially an easy target, he gained her trust. He was able to wiggle his way in, okay? And essentially, he got her to throw her entire life away to be with him. She knew his age. She was a minor. He was in his 40s, I believe. He was in his early 40s. And she was younger. She was, I want to say 15 when it possibly started. And I don't know 100% for sure. Part of me wonders if maybe it went on a little longer. But this person had about 3 years of being under the radar from my knowledge. And a lot took place in those 3 years. It's hard to sit there and think that a child who knows right from wrong, who knows that an older person talking to them is not okay and there's something wrong with it, but yet they still, engage with that older male or female. What people don't really understand, I think, is that even though these kids know that there's something not right about what is going on, they have this sense of acceptance. That person somehow not only gained their trust, but built up the confidence, showed them the love that they did not have. That doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't have love from a parent or family member, or maybe it was just, like being bullied at school or whatever. Those are just examples. The point is, though, that it is possible, no matter how many people try to block this from happening, it does. And when these predators find their way in, even if it's just a little crack, that is their opening and they go for it. And in this case, it was about 3 years. And so much so, the effect that has on these kids makes them up and leave, because whoever is on the other side of that screen is making that child believe that they're the only ones that truly care about them. They're the only ones that love them. And if they are privy to information within inside their household of what these kids are feeling down about, whether it is being grounded too much or isolated or, you know, felt like they're not important enough, or maybe they have a sibling that, that seems to be, like the favorite child or what have you. All they need is to get just a little piece of information, and then these predators know how to go about it that way. So then they convince them. They convince them that, you know, um, they're the ones that are going to show them the love that they never had to experience. They will accept them for all of their quirks. They will accept them for how they are physically. They will accept them for, who they are. They're not going to try and change them. This is their way of grooming them. They groom these kids into believing that the grass is greener on the other side, that that person is capable of showing them more love than they've, had throughout their years. Now, for Kaylee, if you take out all the stuff that we heard her parent or her foster parents say, all the negative things, and you just focus on the fact that she was homeschooled and she had access to social media and she's on the spectrum and her age, that alone kind of sets a precedent for, to be a target. Now, throw in there what we've heard the foster parents say on Sleuths. The dad talks about the regret of adopting or, fostering, and doesn't say very many positive things. And the foster mother is sitting there laughing the entire time. Now, this is what they're doing online. If you think that that's not kind of what happened inside that household, I'm going to tell you more than likely it was. The way they so nonchalantly talk about it and giggle and say the things that they said with like no care in the world about being, looked at a certain way, like it's normal to them, which leads me to believe that this is something that probably took place on a regular basis inside the household before she disappeared. If this is how things were for her everyday living, then that takes her risk of being, groomed to like a whole nother level, because you have a child now who already feels unwanted, feels unloved, feels like, she was a mistake. So, of course, that is going to open up an avenue for any kind of creeper to come through and horn in on that. Whether or not she was groomed along the way and that's why she disappeared, I don't know. But part of me feels like it is a very good possibility, because you can feel just by listening, to these foster parents talk, you kind of feel the hurt for her. Um, when I was listening to them, within the first 4 minutes of the video, I had already knew why she was missing, if that makes any sense. And it was, or why she was put in the position to go missing, I should say. And that was because within that first 4 minutes, there was nothing to indicate that these people truly cared or wanted her. And then if you continue to listen to the rest of the video and then the second part, um, you get the other sense about how much it does seem like they don't care. Like, when you're asked about if, she's out there listening, what do you have to say to her? You got one parent that's like, kind of giggling, we'll just come home. And then you got the other parent saying, well, if you don't want to come home, let us know, you're fine. That's not normal. And I know everybody acts differently and grieves differently. There's not a rule book. But I'm 40 years old, and if I heard that, I would feel like shit, not gonna lie. So I cannot imagine how it would make a teenager feel, you know? You have a teenager that for whatever reason wasn't with her biological parents, and she was fostered by these people since she was 3, I believe. And she had her name changed. She had a birth name, and then when she, went with the foster parents, she got a different name. And as she got older, she still wanted to use her birth name. And that could just be like a sense of identity or, whatever. And it could mean nothing, but it's kind of strange, in my opinion. Um, but I really feel like she was set up in such a way that she became an easy target. And if there's no foul play with inside the household and it was somebody outside of the house, it was definitely somebody that was able to groom her. Because, like I said, from personal experience within the family, if you take a child who has their guard up and they have their guard up so incredibly high that a person is able to infiltrate that, break down that wall, essentially let them leave their lives, move, run away across to another state, forget about their college, everything that they ever aspired, and throw it out the window. And that person was able to penetrate that and worked for years to do that. Okay. Obviously, it didn't happen overnight. Think about how easy it would be for a groomer to find a child or a teenager who does not have that wall up and just wants to feel loved. And I think that could very well possibly be what happened with Kaylee. She did not have her birth parents. So then you sit there and question, well, why am I not with my birth parents? What did they not do? Or, what did they do that, I couldn't be with them? And then you question the love that they had for you. Then you come across the family that you're with, which may have been fine. But then at some point, or maybe even from the beginning, because we don't know, but at some point, she had to have felt the same way. She had to have felt that she wasn't loved, that she was more of a burden instead of like a loving member of the family. She may have felt the resentment that they have, because you can clearly hear the resentment in both of these adults when they speak about her. And again, I'm not saying that they did anything to her per se, but I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying if this was an online predator, that it makes sense why she was able to be preyed on so easily. The fact that they had all these measures to protect her online and via through her cell phone or through her tablet, what have you, that she was doing her schoolwork on, doesn't necessarily mean anything. Okay, because my daughter, a while ago, she would be doing homework on her laptop the entire time. I thought that's what she was doing, and it turned out that she was talking to her girlfriend the entire time. I thought she was in school, but she was able to hide the screen in such a way that I had no idea. She was able to figure out how to bypass all the like security things that the school had on the laptop at the time and whatnot. And there's other things that I've seen on different cases where there's like these apps that you put on the phone to look one way, but that's not really what they are. And I feel like unless you know about certain things to look for, you're not going to know. So if there was security measures on her phone, I don't know. If there was security measures on her tablet or whatever she did her homeschooling on, I don't know. But I do know, even if there was, that some people are savvy enough to break through them. And they are able to still somehow work their way in those different things, like through Snapchat and Facebook. And I don't know about many other ones. I think there was an app called Kick that they were doing it too. Then you come to find out that there's games like Roblox that these predators are able to get into. It's basically they change their age and they portray themselves as the age they want to be, and then they can sit there and act that way the entire time. However, when it comes to Kaylee, I feel like whoever um, was talking to her, she knew the truth about them. I think that they were able to garner so much trust in her that they didn't really have to hide who they actually were. They didn't have to hide their age or any of that stuff, because they knew that she wasn't going to tell, because they knew that what was presented to her by the groomer, whatever they told her, was enough to convince her that it needed to be kept secret, number one. And number two, this was the only way she could have the life that she wanted. And I really do feel like if there was somebody outside the household that did something, that's probably how it played out, because they took her cell phone away from her. Um, I believe she didn't have her tablet. I can't recall. I don't remember. But this is somebody that was able to get into her. It's not like she went to school and was like in the school library, kind of unattended by herself. But she was at home with, devices that she could get onto the internet with, and she could still talk to people. Now, whatever they found on her phone that was so bad that they needed to take away, even though they put those measures up on her phone or whatever to, like, protect her and kind of keep an eye on what she's doing. It had to have been pretty bad. Okay. And when I say pretty bad, I'm talking about like maybe indecent conversations, um indecent photos, whether she was receiving them or sending them, whatever. But there had to be something there that made them take the phone away. And any parent or aunt or uncle or whoever that would come across something like that, their natural instinct would be to take the phone away, figure out who this was that they're talking to, and do whatever they can to make sure it doesn't continue to happen, and ground the kid for doing this, because this wasn't the first time. What bothers me though is, something that Nana's Angels had pointed out, is that when they did their interview, the stepfather said escaped out the window. Now, and people can go back and forth on this, because got gone was a really big one with Summer's case, because John said got gone, and a lot of people really dove into that for like every nefarious reason possible, including myself. Okay. After a while of watching, going back and watching some of the interviews that some of the people did around that area of Tennessee, got gone seems kind of like a common saying over there. It doesn't necessarily mean nefarious things, but because of the situation it's surrounding with Summer and Don being the one to say it, it does come off very nefarious. So I'm 50-50 on that. However, escaped out the window, that to me is just like, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't make sense, because like I feel like your normal response would be like, so she left out the back window, She went out the back window. She climbed out of the window, something like that, but escaped. Escaped, it's like you're talking about a prisoner and not a child. So that bothers me amongst a lot of other things when it comes to um, the things that the foster parents said. Excuse me. Sorry. So I don't know. I just feel like there's just something's not right. Okay. And the other thing is, like I was saying, they're openly talking about how problematic she was, and everything seemed to be negative and almost like a thorn in their side, even to the point where, like he said, that if he could do it again, he probably wouldn't. And like I said, if they're saying this openly online to random people they don't know that are watching them, and whoever they're either interviewing with, then that really makes you ask the question, well, what were they saying to her face? What were they saying inside the house with each other when maybe she was upstairs in her room, or wherever her room is, or maybe she was ear hustling in the hallway or whatever. Any kid that hears that right there alone is so damaging. And now if she comes back and sees any of these videos that have been, put out there where her foster parents are the ones that are, sorry, trying to focus, are the ones that who say specifically about their regrets and all this stuff. I feel like if she felt inclined to reach out and go home or wherever, that after hearing that, she would feel unwanted and realize, well, they didn't want me anyways. And then that just kind of sets up more of the foundation needed for unsavory people to take advantage of her, and groom her further along and really convince her of what they were telling her the whole time. There's no pleading for her. And the only pleading that is there is negative pleading, if you think about it, because the mother laughs, and the the father is sitting there. Well, you don't have to come back. Just tell us if you're happy there. Just tell us where you're at, and that is a huge thing. Most parents would be like, please call us. If you can't call us, call your birth mom. If you can't call her, at least call your brother. Please let everybody know you're okay. Let's talk about this. Let's figure out how we can fix this. Let's bring you home and do whatever we need to do. Let's talk about what we can change and whatever. We just want to make sure that you're safe, and we want you home. We miss you, stuff like that. And they said nothing of the sort. And that's very troublesome. And which also leads me to believe, speculation and theories aside from grooming, if something had happened um, within the household. And again, I'm not accusing anybody. These are just my opinions and my theories. And anybody that's coming in, thank you for coming in and watching. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to say about her. And I will put links in the description for Nana's video and for Sleuth's video about Kaylee. I want to talk real quick about Kylie Rodney. Ugh, her case has become the biggest shit show. Just kind of like how they did to Summer. I feel like her case is being exploited left and right as well. Everybody has their own theories about what took place during that party. Everybody has their own feelings of her mother's parenting skills, of how she was reacting or wasn't reacting, things she has said and hasn't said along, and not to mention like Sammy and all the interviews and stuff like that. I firmly believe that Kylie's mom was being 100% truthful when she said that her and Kylie had this relationship and she trusted Kylie to not drink and drive. And the reason I say she's truthful about that is because she kind of does have that like non like she's a mother, but she's got that like vibe where like they were cool, like they could be friends too in a way, I guess, or wanted to be like the quote unquote cool mom, however you want to put it. Um, so I do believe she was being truthful about that. I really do think that if Kylie knew she was not in the right state to drive, that she would have told her mom, or she simply would have just passed out. Do I agree with, and when I say passed out, like go to sleep it off. Do I agree with allowing her to go to this party because of the type of party it was? Not necessarily. Um, I think I can maybe understand why she felt it was okay because Kylie was 16 and she was graduating high school. But even though that is a huge accomplishment, um, emotionally and mentally, like her brain is a brain of a 16-year-old. Her emotions are the emotions of a 16-year-old. And yes, I get that some people can be very mature for their ages, and I understand that. But I feel like there was just a little too much trust there. And I think all of us as parents have made, I know I have at least, have made a decision or not, where you felt like you were doing the right thing. Like you could trust your kid and you can, count on them to be honest with you and whatnot. And giving them a little slack isn't bad as long as you know what's going on. However, I think also as a parent, um, we forget that at the end of the day, they're still kids. They still make poor choices sometimes and, poor decisions. The whole thing just seems so incredibly set up. It screamed foul play from the very beginning. And aside from that statement that her mother made, anything else outside of there is unbelievable. That's probably the only truthful statement that I feel came out of the whole entire thing. And that's a big deal. Hello. Yes. The first person I talked about was Kaylee. Sorry, I didn't see the comments. I'm visually impaired. It's hard to notice when they're on. Um, and now I'm talking about Kylie Rodney. Um, I personally believe that there has to be adults involved in this. I just get this negative feel about the whole situation. And then finding out that it was online, um, and basically broadcasted out there just kind of opens up that window for questioning the motives of those people that were there that had no business being around teenagers. There was quite a bit of underage drinking and all that stuff. And even if we put all that to the side and about how Adventures with Purpose found her and just how the whole investigation itself has ran, even though I believed her mom when she had said that, um, she had this open, honest relationship with Kylie, the way she acted after Kylie was found, and I get it, there's no, book to tell you how to grieve or anything like that. But it seems so, in a sense, kind of wrong to be so protective over the very same people who refuse to come forth to help her find her child. That bothers me. Um, I remember when they had talked about how there was people who were, telling these kids not to come forth, and my heart broke for Kylie and her family because I couldn't imagine the amount of betrayal that had to have come with that, knowing that the people who essentially, you've been around for many years, who you've probably let into your house to eat at your table, who you've hung out with, who your child hung out with, who, you know, you maybe called a friend and she called a friend, are the very same people that when your child disappears aren't talking. And that's alarming to me. I don't understand how a parent could know those things and not be upset. I feel like I would be knocking on every door, raising hell until I got arrested to find out why you're not talking to law enforcement about what you know about my kid. You know, my kid's missing. Why are you not doing that? Like, to me, that is just so absurd. And you know, I don't attribute that to like not knowing how to grieve or any of that, but like it just it just doesn't make sense. That's like, knowing somebody robbed your house and then the following you'd be like, "Hey, you want to come over to party?" You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense to me. Or like trusting them with something really important doesn't make sense to me. So to see her defending the very people who were supposed to be Kylie's friend and obviously were not good friends, it's really odd to say that, well, we got this or whatever. Like, I don't know. That statement alone in itself can mean so many things. At first I thought she meant like, okay, we got this. We don't need um, social media poking around. We're handling it and everything, and like everything's kosher. They're doing everything the way it needs to be done or whatever. But then on the other hand, it almost came off as kind of like cocky and condescending, like mind your business. And that's just bothersome. The fact that she was cremated, I feel like that alone is going to make it damn near impossible to find out the truth. There's cover up from many angles. And now her mom gives off this very negative vibe. And I didn't pick up on it right away, but after going back and listening and watching and just seeing how everything is, it's right there in front of our faces. And there's no denying that. So I hope one day that we will find out what truly happened to her, but I honestly don't think we will because she was already cremated. I really feel like they're going to rule it as an accident, and that'll be the end of it, even though other people know that it wasn't, and everybody's just going to go about their daily lives. So that was that. Talking about Summer Wells now. We all know that Don is getting out at the end of October. What that means for him and for Summer's case and Ben Hill Road, who knows? It'll be interesting, needless to say. And I guarantee you, once he gets out, if he does get back on YouTube, all the fuckery is just going to continue from where it got left off. I had been listening to a interview with Brian Enton and I'm trying to remember the lady's name. And hold on, let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Well, basically, he was talking to somebody in the news, and the woman that he was speaking with was asking him different questions, and they were going over the interviews that like the first interviews that had taken place with Candace and Don when they're speaking about, like what happened with Summer's hair. And hold on, I'm trying to find the video. What happened with Summer's hair, and as far as the shaving and about, like why her head was shaved. And talking about, let's see here, where is it at? Hold on one second. Sorry. Don and Candace first interview. Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay. Results for Don and Candace first interview. Okay, so it was the WJHL had put it out last year, so it was a year ago. And it was the full interview of Candace, and they recount the events before her um, disappearance, okay? And the interview talks about how, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to forward it, see if I can find the name of who it was. Darn it, I can't find it. I'll have to put the link for the video in the description because I'm not finding the people I'm looking for. Well, anyways, so, they were talking about how Don and Candace had spoke about Summer's hair. And, if you go back and you listen to, you don't listen to any like interviews per se that were done on YouTube, like with creators or anything, but you listen to, one of the very first interviews that come out and really pay attention to what they're saying. And they contradict each other multiple times just in that first interview, which, I feel like was something that everybody kind of put up like like the red flags right away for a lot of people. A lot of us have very many red flags that, get along with others, match others, and then some that don't. A lot of us feel that the parents, one or both, were involved, and a lot of people feel that they had nothing to do with it whatsoever, and it was Grandis, or maybe it was Jody Sue and Jody Sue's kid, her son, I mean, and about John Sherfy Jr., Brad Wishon, which is one of my tops right there. But there are a lot of funky people just in that area, okay, just in general, which we all know. Anybody that's followed this case knows about the insane amount of RSOs that kind of just hover around there. It's like the hub for them. It's disgusting. Anyways, when Don is talking about Summer, and he talks about, and actually Candace does too a little bit, they both refer to Robin and why Summer was so drawn to her. So, a lot of people felt that maybe Robin took Summer out of town and tried to put her someplace safe for whatever reason. Some people feel like that had to do with the fact that Candace was not a girly girl, which I agree. Her shaved head, I now feel like, came down to shame. I know a lot of people picked up on it right away. I didn't at first until I started really listening to what Dawn and Candace were saying. They both talk about Summer wanting to be a princess. They both talk about how her gravitating towards Robin had a lot to do with the physical attributes Robin had, as far as like the hair, the good looks. She was considered a professional woman, and they say she was everything opposite of what Candace was and what Summer truly wanted to be, like a princess. So she kind of viewed her like a princess. I've always felt from the beginning that Don was a diddler, and he was into some very nasty things. I feel the same about Candace, and again, these are my opinions. We all have our own. And I've always felt that whatever did happen to Summer, I felt like Don knew some of it, but not necessarily all of it. I feel like Candace told him, a certain amount of things in order to keep him at bay, because she knew if he knew the truth that he would wind up taking her out too. However, with everything that's coming out about Jody Sue and her son, John Sherfy, and all the RSOs that are around the area that, were basically not registered or, doing their own thing, and people didn't even know like who they were or that they existed out there, brings it up to a whole nother notch. Candace and Jody Sue, in the beginning, we all know Jody kind of backed the Wells. Then all of a sudden, after the land wasn't sold, she flipped, and all of a sudden, the Wells were 100% responsible, and she did everything to destroy their character after she had defended them. You know what I mean? Um, none of us know what happened that day, previous days or not. But on Voices Behind the Wall, which is Cher's channel, and I will put her link in the description too, she read off a letter that was sent to her by somebody. I want to say it was a third party from, like they knew somebody that talked to them, and then she decided to send out the letter herself. The things that are said in that letter actually really do make sense. It's very plausible that that's what happened, especially now that we know that Jody Sue's son, who, by the way, looks like a cream puff and not a military buff, is officially in the military. And I don't mean just physically. I mean, he just doesn't seem like one of those hard dudes. You know what I mean? He seems like a cream puff, like, like to like shoot at a deer and maybe play some video games, but doesn't really seem like the type of person that's going to go around and fight for their country and murk people. I don't know. I'm just saying. That's just how he seems. It doesn't seem like it's really in his personality. That being said, with him being found lurking around the property and I've always wondered what his relationship with Sherfy Jr. would have been. And this letter talks about all those things, and it does really put into perspective about how very close to home what happened with Summer is. I mean, we all know it was close to home. We all know that something happened on that hill. Even before she went missing or reported missing, we all know that. But if we take all the other factors out, like after hearing Don talk on the interview room or on Cher's channel or any of that, if you take all of that out, if you don't know about what happened with Mary and his sisters, if you didn't know about the drug problems and all that stuff, and you just listen to the words that come out of their mouths, especially Dawn. He speaks of Summer as a love interest and not a daughter. Okay, they both speak of Summer like as if they're trying to really push the narrative that they knew who Summer was, and like as if they were trying to put on a show. I think we can all agree they weren't very attentive parents in that sense. I feel like if you were going to ask Candace about the boys, she could probably tell you a bunch of things. But when it comes to Summer, no. Don feels like he can talk about Summer a little bit, but again, it's for his sickness that he has in his head. Like, it's still not talking about her like a daughter or a child. They can't tell you her favorite candy. They didn't know her age or her birthday. There's just so much there. Now you put in the lurking of Jody Sue's son, and you put out there what we know about Sherfy Jr. and his little habit that he has, that he wasn't already in jail for at that time. Just because he did not get caught physically, like red-handed doing anything, doesn't mean he didn't. There's no doubt in my mind that he has dabbled himself, with diddling. I just think he has never been physically caught. When you look at all the law enforcement that is involved with the corruption and the essays and everything else in that town, your list opens wider. When you listen to this letter that Cher tries to read, I know she's going to be putting it, she said she was going to put it on her community post because the letter itself was hard to read. She was going to do it for members only, and then she was going to release it to the public. So, you can wait for that, or you can go listen and hear a little bit about what it says. When this person, they have, it's just weird because they seem like they might be from out of the country, who sent this in, just by like some of the words they use, like maybe possibly from UK or something. Um, However, the information that they put into that letter, as crazy as some of it may seem, it makes sense. And I think the reason I'm really curious about who got that letter is because, yes, technically, they could have watched everything from, point A to point B and all the in betweens, and come to the conclusion themselves. But they're very knowledgeable about some things, and they seemed very uh, adamant about certain things. And I don't know. I feel like I would really like to know where they got their information from. Who There has to be an insider somewhere, or it's got to be somebody pretending to be an outsider who really is an insider. I don't know. It's odd, just odd altogether. Um, However, like I said, there's just information in there that just it makes sense. Did John Sherfy Jr. hang out with Andy Bernard Jr.? Most likely, if you think about it. They don't seem like the very sociable type. They kind of stick together, and you've got, Sherfy Jr. that we know for a fact is going to be doing time in prison for his dirty birdie bullshit that he was doing. And we know for a fact that Jody Sue's son was caught more than once by different people lurking around the property that he had full access to. We know that the drugs were, very lucrative in that area. Then if you take the train hopper kids and put them in there, that they won't go to law enforcement because they're afraid of getting in trouble for what they did on the hill. And I suppose it makes sense to somebody. To me, it doesn't, because there's a missing child involved. I feel like that's not her fault that you chose to make bad choices in your life. So why should she have to pay for it? Like, if you weren't doing shady shit to begin with, you wouldn't have nothing to hide. But anyways, that's just my opinion. But they openly stated that they were around Summer and the boys. They had conversations with them. They sat next to them. They hung out with them for a little bit, which also says the proof, the fact that those kids were there when all this nefarious crap was happening. They witnessed a lot of these things. So even if you try to stay local with all the fuckery that's going around locally, you start adding in the fact that there are probably in the hundreds of people who have frequented the hill in and out because they were sent there for drugs or whatever they were looking for. And for this letter to come out and really come at, I felt it kind of really came at Jody Sue's son and Don Sherfy Jr. Um, it makes sense because they would be privy to the fact that people come in and out that hill all the time. They would be privy to the lifestyle that Candace and Don led. They would know Don's schedule. They would know what took place on that hill when Don was at work. They would know about Don's binges. They would know about whether or not Candace was truly attentive when it came to watching the kids outside. They would be the ones to know the ins and outs of the lands even. And yes, I know Sherfy Jr. didn't live there and he frequented there, but there's no physical proof that says where Sherfy was that day. There's no physical proof that, or I shouldn't say says, shows. There's no physical proof that shows where Sherfy Jr. was that day or where Jody Sue's son was that day. It's all hearsay. All hearsay. There is no video recording that I'm aware of anyways, or cam trail or whatever it's called, showing, where any of these people were during this time. And that, that rings true for just about everybody involved for that day. But when the lady's talking in the letter and she talks about, the relationship with between Candace, John Sherfy Jr., and Jody Sue's kid and Jody Sue, it all makes sense. It all clicks. Whether or not Sherfy Sr. had any beef with John or any of that, I don't know. However, Jody Sue is this vindictive, nasty person that don't even like herself, let alone anybody else. And she's extremely shady and underhanding. And it kind of incriminates her even more, because we all know how she felt about the kids being around there, and how she stated multiple times that, she likes her kids, but practically nobody else's. And hearing, somebody who wouldn't necessarily know all of these things, but, like I said, they could find it out online. But to flat out come out and say right away about the two of them, it makes sense. It makes sense. And the power behind that drive to help that would be Jody Sue, because Jody Sue is pissed, because Jody Sue is Jody Sue. I mean, that's basically the only way you can explain it. Well, anyways, I hope that they do not get custody back of the boys. I truly hope not. I know a lot of people think that they should, but let's be honest. Don and Candace didn't become shitty parents once after Summer was reported missing. They already were shitty parents. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent by any means, but I'm just saying there is a whole lot of, sorry, I'm looking for something. There is a whole lot of proof, not even just gibberish and misinformation. There's a lot of proof that they were not the best of parents before Summer was reported missing. And they didn't just start their drinking and drug use before Summer was reported missing, or any of that stuff. That stuff was all already there. Okay, so, those are three of them. So the other thing I would like to speak on is Julissa Fuentes. She, she's still missing, and she doesn't have a lot of coverage. I know there are some people that are covering her. I encourage people to please, look into Julissa's case, spread her name out there, spread, awareness for her, and let her have a fighting chance of being found as well. There are lots of, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the names. There are lots of Indigenous missing people out there, and they also seem to have the most minimal information you could possibly find on them, which is why I haven't done very many videos on them to talk about them, because you can't find anything. It's like their pictures there, where they went missing from, and if they belong part of a tribe, that stuff's in there, and who to contact and stuff like that. But as far as finding out like anything personally about any of these kids or adults, it's like pulling teeth. You can't, there's no way to get around it. So I would like to encourage people to please, do your due diligence and see if maybe there's something you can find out about some of these people that are missing. And, maybe fresh pair of eyes and somebody with better sleuthing abilities is able to get some answers for some of these missing people, that, I'm not able to. I mean, I use Google. I'm not tech savvy. And, I try to figure it out on my own, but I honestly don't know how people get the information that they get. It's amazing to me and it's wonderful, but I'm clueless when it comes to it. So I just kind of do my own thing. Um, the other thing is, um, when you see cases where they claim the child is a runaway, um, there's a reason they ran, like whether it's a foster system or it's from home or whatever, obviously, or, it just because they just want to wild out, obviously there's a reason they left. Whether it was just to be defiant or there was something heavy happening and going on wherever they were residing and they chose to bounce because of that, they still should be found. They still deserve to be looked at um, as a missing child, not necessarily a troublemaker or a runaway. I feel like that label, in a sense, is a stigmatism and kind of makes people look at those cases like, well, they didn't want to be there to begin with, so why spend the time trying to find them? And I get it. I used to have that mentality too. Um, so I had to really think about that, and they're still kids. They're still the ones missing. And those kids that are out there who are physically, we know they're no longer with us, but their bones are still out there, like Harmony or Classic and Sincere. Um, you know, those kids are out there. Um, there's there's still no closure for them and no justice for them if they're still not found. I don't think there's ever a real thing as justice when it comes to these kids and stuff like that, because if that was the case, the stuff never would have happened to begin with. But either way, I feel like they still need to be found. They need to be brought home to have like a proper burial. And they deserve that because they were so mistreated in life that at least they should be given the proper burial and um, given love at that moment in time when they're no longer here on earth. And I have a few kids that I have names out there that I'm gonna put out there. I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do the videos for them just yet, because my mind's kind of still trying to figure out what would be the best way to do it. You know what I mean? To get somebody to really listen, because um, they're still important as, everybody else. Let's see here. Okay, so the next one is Lede Arnold. She's 7 years old and she is considered or listed as a runaway, which is ridiculous. Okay. I don't care what anybody says, but I think it's bull. And she went missing June 26th of 2022, and she is from St. Louis, Missouri. And she's 7. I mean, to say that she ran away is just, well, I mean, yes, obviously she could have, right? We all know that it's possible, but come on, like, she's a 7-year-old child. The likelihood of that happening is just kind of minimal, if you ask me. Okay. Um, Little Miss Lena Sadar is still out there, Sadar Kill. And I really feel like whoever took her knew her, family knew her, and it was a man and a woman. Maybe not together. Maybe the man took her first to meet the woman. But I really do believe she was taken to be married off or to possibly be somebody's daughter. And I feel like there is a huge um, disadvantage that her family has because of the language barrier and because of the tight knit community that they are in. Maybe even some fear would be in there. There's a reason they're refugees. They ran for a reason. They came here for a better life, only to have their daughter taken. And I feel like that could stop people from talking because they're afraid of it possibly happening to their own family and their own children. And then we have little Mr. Cody Bigsby, who is unfortunately still missing, and the family of the father is advocating all for Corey's rights, but none for Cody. So that right there speaks volumes itself and pretty much tells us everything we need to know. And I just really hope that Cody is found, whatever that may mean. And then we have little Miss Rhea Gupta. Rhea Gupta, she was missing February 10th of 2011 from McLean, Virginia. And she's another one who just vanished. And there's nothing about her. There are actually, if you look at my list, I don't have all 50 states up there, but if you go and look at my playlist of the different kids, there's some of these kids, there's no information whatsoever. Some of the children, when you look up missing children, they don't even have a picture of these kids out there. There seem to be a lot of missing families, which I haven't done videos on because of how confusing the cases are, and I don't want to put out misinformation or false information that could, create some kind of issue with these cases. But again, I encourage everybody to go out there, find a case that has been getting under your skin or whatever, or even just a case that you're like, something ain't right here, and see if maybe there's something you're able to figure out, and then, possibly contribute to finding out information that wasn't found out before. I feel like we all look at these cases so much that it's kind of like spinning around because, you go over it and over and over it, and you can't figure out what you missed. And sometimes you need that other set of eyes to do just that. Trinity White Mouse is another one. She is indigenous from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and she disappeared just like that. And actually, there's quite a few from Sioux Falls. I've got Elena Ashlia Waddell. She's from Sioux Falls. Trinity, like I said. Jordan Brown Bull is from South Dakota, but a different part, Pennington County. There are just, let's see here, Chanel Botetcher. She is from Rapid City, South Dakota. There's a lot of South Dakota missing indigenous kids and adults. Gelka Gigi Ifanuk. She is out of Hawaii, along with Alan A.J. Bennett, Sky Carroll, Lenora Jack, Kamani Mata Kehula, Gelka Gigi Ifanuk, or did I say that one already? I did. I'm sorry. I did say that one. So, all these kids are just out there. Then we have Nevaeh Cimino, who literally vanished off the face of the earth, and no information on her. Can't find any information from the police. There's no help whatsoever when it comes to her either. And little Lucian, who is still missing. And he's another one. He's autistic. He was originally said to be nonverbal, which turns out that's not necessarily true. He's more so limited with his speech, not necessarily nonverbal. And this is a 4-year-old child, and the search for him, like, it doesn't make sense. It just stopped, and it's so sad because, they've looked in the bodies of water, they've searched, there's nothing there. Um, there was, a party that was going on nearby. There could have been somebody that saw him and took him. I don't know. It's just all these cases are just so much, like there's no answers. And in some cases, there's more questions than there are answers. And, there's no information. And then there's so much information, you can't spin your head around it. And there's a lot of misinformation. So, I just wanted to bring this stuff up and, you know, um, just get it off my chest because it's just really bothering me. I am, after I, put up this video, I'm going to edit it to put some links in the description. Feel free to, go there and watch the videos of these creators and, what was said on there, and make your own decisions and see if maybe you can pick up on something that all of us have missed. Um, you know, uh, put our heads together and try and figure these things out. And thank you for watching, anybody who's here. I am so sorry. I see that I missed the official ambassador of the mulatto race. I am very sorry. Like I said, I'm visually impaired, so it's hard to see when the comments come up. But thank you so much for everybody that's here viewing on the replay or during this. It is much appreciated, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Let's go ahead and keep these kids out there and try and bring them home and, hopefully get answers. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful day.